Ophelia, I have something to discuss. Roderick spoke cautiously. He had closed the door tightly and even used an anti-espionage scroll to prevent anyone from hearing him. What's wrong, Roderick? In a very serious atmosphere, Ophelia looked at her husband with a hardened face. Of course, it wasn't that surprising, since he had sensed that she had something to say to him. Ever since he visited the palace and chatted with the emperor, Roderick had been lost in thought with a gloomy expression on his face. What's more, from time to time he would look at her and observe her expression, so he thought that she would soon start talking about something. He opened his mouth with a sigh, wondering what was so difficult. So. Although he had been organizing his thoughts and choosing what to say for a long time, when he stood in front of his wife, the words passing through his head strangely seemed to become tangled and confused. Speak slowly. I'm not going to run away. I may have to speak quickly for the duration of the spell. I'm fine, but the anti-espionage spell will leak. Ophelia smiled and joked discreetly, trying to lighten the mood. And the joke must have worked, because Roderick giggled. The tension seemed to ease a little. It seems that His Majesty wants to do what Isla suggested. That is, set a trap and lure Byron. Yeah. At her husband's words, the smile disappeared from Ophelia's face. From the Emperor's perspective, Isla's proposal was inevitable. It was a chance to capture the traitor he had failed to apprehend for more than a decade. And perhaps it was his only chance. But what father would be happy if the bait in that trap was his own young daughter? In fact, even if the daughter were an adult, any sane parent would naturally object. Of course, His Majesty would not force us unless we fully agreed. I, his close friend of 30 years, assure you I wouldn't do it. Roderick, seeing his wife's cold expression, added urgently. He wanted to assure him that if he continued to object, neither he nor the Emperor would have any intention of pursuing the matter any further. Ophelia tilted her head slightly and fell into deep thought. His expression was completely unreadable. Seeing his wife like this, Roderick simply waited anxiously for a response. After a while, Ophelia cautiously opened her mouth. What do you think? I was asking Roderick for his opinion. He sighed unconsciously. The fact that it wasn't an outright rejection was a rather hopeful situation. In the past, I would have dismissed it as nonsense. I want to give the girl what she wants. The pain he has suffered must be immense. She wants revenge for her hand, but I don't think it's a good idea to try to stop her. If it can bring some peace to Isla. It's true too. Ophelia nodded slightly, her husband's sincerity was evident. Not because he had to abide by the imperial edict or sacrifice his daughter for the empire, but because he sincerely wanted to reassure Isla. That didn't mean he immediately agreed to this risky plan. You're right, but I don't want that guy and my daughter to get involved. I hate it so much it gives me chills. I understand. I feel the same about him. Roderick nodded, as if he understood perfectly why Ophelia was reluctant to accept the offer. He also hated Byron terribly. But that's why I want to carry out this plan even harder. If we can catch Byron as soon as possible, wouldn't Isla and I feel better? If we don't catch him, none of us will ever be able to live in peace. While he began to express his opinion in a low voice, Ophelia fell back into her thoughts, her expression unreadable, and only spoke after a few minutes. Anyway, I have to be careful with that guy and the spies. Because of the curse. I'll try to think optimistically until Isla's curse is lifted. Yes, I understand. Roderick nodded and smiled slightly at her attitude, much more relaxed than before. It was then. There was a knock. It didn't come from the door, but from inside the wall. Roderick approached the entrance to the secret passage and opened the door. Only one person could have entered that passage at that time. It was Isidoro. and as expected, the one who came out of the hallway was Ophelia's brother. He seemed a little excited, as if he brought some news. I received news from Director Eposher that your name has been discovered. Sure, I'm still not sure, he cursed Isla, but... After exchanging brief greetings with the couple and taking a seat, Isidore began to speak in a somewhat excited voice. As soon as she heard the news from Candace, she rushed to tell her sister and brother-in-law as soon as possible. Suki and Sidio. That's enough information. I'll try to find out as soon as possible. Roderick clenched his fists in determination. 10 days later, as Roderick had boasted, he quickly narrowed down the list of places where a sorceress named Suki and Sidio could reside. This was due to the detailed map of the empire he had created while searching for Isla. It mainly documented abandoned ruins, fortresses, and mountain fortifications in sparsely populated areas. Thanks to this, selecting candidates was not difficult. It was simply finding abandoned buildings that, according to rumors among nearby villagers, were cursed or inhabited by witches. Of course, there were countless such places, but based on the addresses recorded in his school record from 30 years ago, he selected nearby places and selected 6 candidates. If none of these candidates were hiding Suki and Sidio, they would have to expand their reach, but Roderick sensed that one of them was undoubtedly the right answer. I intended to personally visit each place on the list. And when he shared this story with Ophelia and Isidore, he found himself in unexpected company. I'll go too. Yeah? You, brother? Isidore offered to accompany him. Yeah. Suki and Sidio is an expert in curses and black magic, so I can help. Who knows what a fearsome black magician would do to an intruder who visits his lair? I can't allow my sister to be a widow. To someone unaware of Isidore's lack of humor, even if it was used against him, this might have been a friendly joke, but he wasn't joking. His expression was deadly serious. While it was true that Roderick was extremely strong, his opponent was a woman of unparalleled cruelty, as if she had turned his moral compass into candy. It wouldn't have been surprising if he had resorted to some trick. Yeah, then I guess I can pretend to go hunting with my brother. Ophelia tilted her head at Roderick's suggestion. The excuse that her husband and her brother-in-law, whom she had not seen for a long time, were going hunting together was certainly convincing, but when that brother-in-law was Isidore, the situation felt a little, very awkward. His brother, the most stubborn and reluctant to move, was hunting. Of course, there was no better excuse than that, and since Ophelia and her 2 daughters were the only people in the empire who knew Isidore well enough to miss the story, it was fine with him, so he didn't say it out loud. If Rachel, who frequently attended the social gatherings of her nephews, especially those of the imperial nobility, could keep her mouth shut, there would be no major problems. Rachel, completely absorbed in her love affairs with the young master, whom she had met at Marquis Salusan's banquet a while ago, probably didn't care whether her father went hunting or did anything else. So, before I leave, I should meet with Isla and talk to her privately. After all, she's probably the one waiting for news the most. Roderick opened his mouth with a heavy heart and a gloomy expression. It was heartbreaking to see her little daughter suffering like this. And that was the heart of all the adults gathered there. They wanted to lift Isla's curse as soon as possible and give her back her radiant, smiling face. The fact that he was precocious for his age hurt him even more. If she were freed from the heavy burden of the curse, would Isla be able to smile innocently like other children her age? And that night, Ophelia called Lisa and Laura. The purpose was to hear in detail how Isla was taking the classes, since she had officially started her etiquette and succession classes, but in reality, it was so that Roderick could contact his daughter through a secret passage. Laura, completely unaware of this fact, went into detail about Isla's accomplishments, as if trying to compete with Lisa. It was very easy for Laura, as she had always done with Byron and his mother before coming here. While Ophelia held Laura, Roderick had a secret meeting with his daughter.